Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. I am your host, Mike Jokum. Joining me today is Matt. Jess is off for the night because she is working like a 57-hour shift, so she got the day off. Sorry, Matt, your PTO request has been denied again.
I don't work that hard, unfortunately. So Jess is definitely working much harder than me today.
That's fair. Same here. So with that being said, we do want to pass along our well wishes and condolences to the Curry family as Larry Curry passed away, I think this weekend at age 68, worked closely with Menards Racing to help them achieve the great speed they got at Indy for a while. Also worked with Vision Racing, Dreyer and Reinbold. In the last couple of years, worked for Harding Racing. So I hope his family is hanging in there, and our thoughts and well wishes are with everybody.
Yeah, Larry was very good at finding speed for cars. You know, Menards blew a lot of people away in the 90s with a lot of the pace they showed at Indianapolis, and, you know, reliability wasn't always there, but speed was always there. So it was awesome to see them do so well, and Larry was a big part of that. So just wishing his family the best during this difficult time, and hopefully we can all get through this together, and hopefully they remember him well because he was well-liked around the paddock.
So with that being said, some positive news. We can officially say IndyCar is back on June 6th. So yay to that. The Genesis 300 is what it's now called because it's been shortened to 200 laps down in Texas. It is a one-day weekend, so there's a 2-hour practice session, followed about 2.5 hours later by qualifying, and then the race at around 8:45 p.m. Eastern time on NBCSN. So, Matt, any initial reactions to the news coming out?
Yeah, I'm psyched. It's about time. It's just giving me something to look forward to for sure. It's interesting to see what the layout is. We'll kind of dive into that in a second here, but just to see that concretely that it's going to be back, you know, no fans for obvious reason, but just to see a race back on the schedule, something to look forward to, figuring out who I'm going to pick for Fantasy IndyCar, kind of just like normal. It feels really good. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely exciting to be back. We will be covering it from our houses, so won't be down there most likely. I think they are limiting, like NASCAR, everybody to just a handful of working media down there. But Matt, are you a little bummed it's not on the regular NBC versus NBCSN?
So something my wife is trying to teach me is that I can't say the word but. So I can't say, yeah, I'm really excited for the race, and yeah, I'm really excited to make my Fantasy IndyCar picks, but because that obviously kind of takes away everything I just said. But I'm a little bummed that this isn't going to be on NBC. I understand that NBC has their ways. I believe that Saturday Night Live isn't actually producing anything live right now in the studio or anything like that, correct?
I have no idea, but I think you're right.
And I understand that 84% of America probably doesn't care about racing, but just to put something on NBC during this time, regardless of whatever sport it is, I think would be really cool. I mean, we got people tuning into Belarusian soccer and South Korean baseball and whatnot. So people are kind of thriving for any sport they can get right now. So I think putting it on NBC or not putting it on NBC is a missed opportunity, but I guarantee there's some obscure reason for it. I don't know if we'll ever figure that out or if it'll be public, but yeah, I definitely am a little bit bummed about that.
Yeah, I understand what your wife is saying. That makes a lot of sense. She's very smart. It sounds like. Happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, not only is the race shortened, but the weekend is shortened to one day. So it's a 2-hour practice, I think, early in the afternoon, the qualifying mid-afternoon, early evening, and then the race is at night. So what are your thoughts on the new schedule and shortening of the race?
I'm all right with it. Again, I'm pretty sure there's probably a scientific reason that us simpletons don't understand as to why the race was shortened a little bit. Doesn't make too much sense to me. But again, I'm happy with the fact that racing's back. And if I get 28 less laps of racing, I'm really not going to cry about it. It's just good to be back. And I think the whole practice qualifying racing in one day, given the circumstances right now, is actually pretty smart with safety in mind and whatnot, not having people around too often. They can just get to the track, race, go home. And so as that's concerned, I think it's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I think it has to do with a couple things. There's obviously much less crew than there normally is. So if there's a repair, they've got less time and less resources. Also putting everything in one day, the first race back after what, I don't know, a 9-month layoff at this point. Maybe it's a good thing. I don't, and listen, it's only 48 laps shorter, so I'm more than okay with that to get racing back. And we've seen the one day thing before. I think Pocono last year ended up being essentially a one day, or was it 2 years ago when it rained? I don't remember. It was sometime recently. And obviously Texas had the unique circumstance where it rained and then they had to do the race like 3 months later. So it's not like the first time this one day smush schedule has ever been done before.
No, it hasn't. And then one follow-up question I had for you that was brought up in our members chat was, are you at all concerned that the first race of the season's at a place like Texas as far as the speed in the oval?
I understand the concern, but no, not really. These are all professional drivers. I think everybody is aware of that, and I don't think you'll see any crazy antics. That's something I talked to James Hinchcliffe about the other day, as you guys probably heard. He doesn't seem too concerned about it, so I will just take other professional people's advice. I know Zach Veach and I talked about it a little bit after him and I chatted last week, and he's not that concerned about it. I understand, it's a tough track to make your debut on after a long layoff or as a rookie, your first race, but I think it'll be more than okay.
Yeah, I agree. And there was some chatter as far as the safety crowd was concerned about hosting the first race at Road America instead, so drivers can get up to speed. And as I pointed out in the members chat, that to me, Road America is every bit as dangerous as a high-speed oval, given how fast you go, how tight it is there, how little to no paved runoff there is. It is very easy to make a mistake there, or if you do something like shred a tire through the kink, that's going to lead to a massive accident. So there isn't, unless you can get a street course, like St. Pete to me is perfect because you very rarely see a nasty crash at St. Petersburg. Gets everybody kind of in the groove and whatnot, and then you go to a place like Barber that can cause some havoc because, again, it's another tight, little to no runoff track. So Texas wouldn't be my first choice, but I don't think at this point there would be an ideal first track just because the next scheduled street race is Toronto, and who knows if that's going to happen. So you're kind of a mixed bag no matter what direction you take.
Yeah, you could almost say that every track in a way has its spots where you're a little bit concerned for safety, like you said, outside of maybe a street course. So overall, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to. We're going to have to do our new season preview episode again in the next few weeks. So we're going to start doing our research, and I have to remember all those questions that we came up with.
Yeah, it's and I can't wait. Like we said, I can't wait to contradict myself like 80 times, make myself sound like an idiot. Moving on. So right before the Xbox race last night, got just some fantastic news in that Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari have mutually agreed to part ways after this season, whenever it ends or begins. So after the end of this season, they are going their separate ways, as they could not agree on a contract extension. So the 2021 Ferrari lineup should be something like Charles Leclerc and then a new driver to Ferrari, allegedly. Mike, it's good that we're doing this without Jess because Jess hates Formula One. So Mike, what are your overall reactions to this?
I'm not I'm actually surprised. I thought all of this back and forth we've heard between Vettel and Ferrari over the last few weeks would just be more smoke and mirrors like it always seems to be with Ferrari. But like you, Vettel hasn't done much in I don't know, a couple of years, really. I know he's got some wins, but he's never been, to me, championship caliber for the most part. And actually, as of 23 minutes ago when we were recording, Racer.com and Chris Medlin say that it is Carlos Sainz poised to replace Sebastian Vettel. So, Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot. This article just came out right probably before you and I started recording. What are your thoughts on Carlos Sainz?
He was one of the names that floated to the top of my list when I saw the list of drivers who were being considered. You know, we saw Daniel Ricciardo was the other big one that I thought maybe would get it. So Sainz, Ricciardo, people were throwing out Hulkenberg, Mick Schumacher, Alonso is being thrown out there. Another round of Fred Watch coming. But yeah, Sainz, I think, given what he's been able to do the last couple of years, and it's weird that the path his career's taken. So if he does end up at Ferrari, that's such a big win for him. So I like it. I like Carlos Sainz. I have nothing negative to say about him. Give me 4 years and I could probably rack up a resume of things to say about him that aren't so nice. But at this present moment, I think he would be a great fit for the team, and I would very much like to see that happen.
I agree. I think it would be a good fit there. So I am curious to see, like you, I thought it might be Ricciardo, but I think Sainz is a couple of years younger, so maybe they were going with a little bit more of a youth at Ferrari for a change.
Weird how that works. And then my reaction to Vettel, yeah, it never did much for me at Ferrari per se. I think at Red Bull, it was one of those things where he had a really good car, and he did manage to beat his teammate, who was kind of worse for wear for some races at a time. But at Ferrari, yeah, I mean, he shot himself in the foot plenty of times. He got awarded plenty of opportunities as far as team orders. There was plenty of times where drivers were told to sit behind him. So I think this decision was a little overdue. I would have done it about 2 years ago if I were them, given the mistakes that were piling up. But I'll have more thoughts on that later in the episode. Moving on, we did have the 9th round of the Pit Lane Parlay Grand Prix League at the Xbox Series. We were at Austria last night. Jake Neely won his 4th race of the season and 3 of the last 4 races, followed by Colin Taylor and then myself. So unfortunately, the Vettel news wasn't enough to propel me to victory. I was hoping it would give me a little bit of extra motivation. I don't know why, but so we got Silverstone next week, and then our All-Star race, which I'm super psyched for. I'll explain more of the All-Star race next week. Mike, how'd the PS4 race go?
So it was a little bit of a recovery for me after a few bad weeks. I think David Lighting won again. I know at this point is pretty much no surprise there. And Mr. Frenchie finished in 2nd, and then I finished in 3rd. So it was a lot of fun at Montreal. It's a really cool track. And then Gran Turismo on Sunday, I did come out on top victorious, but David Lighting was about 6 inches from being able to pass me 2 turns from the end at Bathurst or Mount Panorama, whatever you want to call it. So that was a lot of fun. We had a couple more guys join the Sunday night league. So this week we have 40 minutes at Monza, so a little bit easier than Bathurst.
Monza. Sounds like a wreck waiting to happen. Also for the Xbox League, just wanted to give a quick shout out. We actually did have our first 20-car grid, so that was really cool. So shout out to everybody who's signed up for the league. It's been a lot of fun. And to everybody who's in the PS4 League and the Gran Turismo League, thanks for joining. It's been a good time. Just some quick items to note here before we kind of round out the episode today. Formula One is expected to announce their schedule soon, and it is believed that Austria is going to be hosting not only the first race on July 5th, but also the second race on a separate weekend, so July 12th. So back-to-back weekends at Austria. This was according to German paper Bild. And then they believe it was something like 17 races at 12 venues or something along those lines. So expect something soon from Formula One so we can start marking up our calendars to look forward to those races. It was reported that Fernando Alonso is unlikely to do a full season of IndyCar in 2020. Obviously, those rumors were put to bed in about January, February, but given the circumstances of where we're at right now, it kind of opened up a new Pandora's box of Fred Watch. So we will keep you apprised of if we hear anything as far as Fernando Alonso is concerned. And then finally, on top of what we announced at the beginning of the episode with IndyCar going back to Texas, more good news in that front is that most teams are actually back to work at this point, prepping for Texas and other races this season. I know the IndyCar media team has been doing some team previews and whatnot. So today, Tuesday, they were giving us kind of a behind the scenes tour of Carlin, showing us what their garages and whatnot were looking like. So good news to have. Looks like most of the IndyCar teams putting their personnel back to work so that we can get ready for the season.
Yeah, I'm excited that it is now less than a month away. Fingers crossed. But I am also tired that Alonso is still talking about a full season or not a full season. I feel like this is like the Danica thing that's just never going to go away. When we talked about Danica for the first 80 episodes before her Indy 500 appearance. With that being said, I want to give a quick shout out to a few Team Pit Lane members this week. Let's give a shout out to George Butts. How about Jess's dad? And last but not least, Carrie Chim. So with that, and thank you to everybody who's continued to listen to all the episodes and whatnot we put out. It's been fun to chat with people about the episodes and about racing as we navigate these challenging times. So with that, it's time for the facts game. Yes, we still don't have a more creative name for that. And I've put very little effort into narrowing down 3 facts. So this might be very easy. I am a 21-year-old driver, but not a rookie. I have won championships in Indy Lights and IMSA prototype class. And I need a third fact here. And I was released from my contract right before the 2019 season started.
Does his name rhyme with Lado do Tord?
Your effort there was very poor, but yes, it does.
Almost as much as your effort in the 3 facts.
Yeah, to be honest with you,
as you're reading off your third one.
Tuesday, I was scrambling last minute. I had a busy day with a couple interviews that we did today, and just totally spaced that it was my turn to do this. So yes, sometimes even I forget.
So I think that's going to be my new driver's name is Lado do Lord.
Yeah, that should be your like Xbox username, whatever you call it. Gamer
tag.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm showing my age. So with that, we are going to bring back Pitfalls this week.
And now it's time for Pit Lane Parlay's Pitfalls of the Week.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for being positive in these pretty dark times, but to get to pitfall people and whatnot again, it's just a hobby of mine. I don't know why. So again, thanks to everybody who's been listening. Shout out to Mike. He's actually done a lot of interviews and whatnot the last couple weeks. Really holding down the fort there. Jess has been able to jump into a couple as well during her morning / afternoon. I'm stuck staring at my computer, so unfortunately unable to join. I'll join one of these days, but so thanks again to everybody who's been listening. Hope you're all staying safe out there and doing well. So I got my positive bit there done with. Now I can move into the negative. So my pitfall is related to Ferrari fans. Obviously, we just discussed Sebastian Vettel being released, and you would think that Sebastian Vettel had won 70% of the races and 3 championships over the last 5 years, given the comments that were being made. How could you do this to him? You guys gave him bad cars. You set him up for failure. He's one of the best of all time. What are you thinking? He's got the 5th career most wins. What are you doing? I mean, have they been paying attention for, let's say, last 3 years when he's been repeatedly spinning on his own, crashing into his teammate, crashing into other cars, throwing away a win in Germany, whining, whinging, getting team orders? I get that Sebastian has fans, and if I was a loyal fan, so let's say I was a huge fan of Joseph Newgarden, and Joseph was doing pretty good work, but also shooting himself in the foot a couple times and got fired from Team Penske. Yeah, I might be a little upset too, but I would also take a step back and say, oh, that's somewhat justified a little bit. So for Vettel fans to kind of blatantly ignore some of the faults that he's had over the last couple of years and some of the team orders that he's got specifically within the last year or two, to even elevate his standing in the championship standings that much more. I think it's a little unfair to be mad at Ferrari in this situation. And Vettel came out today and said that it wasn't because of money as far as why they couldn't get a contract figured out. Not sure I'm buying that. I think he's getting paid something absurd. I don't want to throw out a number without Googling it real quick. I swore it was like 60 million euros a year or something ridiculous like that. I'll Google that while Mike does his next one. But so my pitfall is Ferrari fans for overreacting to Ferrari's announcement that they're parting ways with Vettel.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to switch up our normal pitfall style here and ask you a question mid-pitfall. Would you, even if it was just for, say, the 500 or one race, welcome Sebastian Vettel in IndyCar?
I would. Absolutely. I have no problem with Vettel as a person or as a driver. I just think he's overrated. And I think it would be a huge part wake-up call and part relief for him to come try IndyCar, just because it is a little humbling to go from the second best team in the top open wheel series to, let's say, Ed Carpenter Racing, where you're jumping into a car that's not the best in the grid, plus everybody else is pretty much similar in strength and whatnot. So to me, it would be something cool to see like how he does stack up. Like, let's say he comes over here and does really well, and it might change my opinion of him that much a little bit, because in my opinion, he's had 2 years of his 12-year career where he hasn't had a good car. So it's hard to see where Vettel stacks up in history just because he's had an unbelievable car for almost his entire career.
Fair. And I do agree. I think it would be cool to see him. I'd be curious to see how he would do with the fans. Alonso took really well to the fans after being kind of secluded in F1 for so many years. So it'd be cool to see how he handled that. But my pitfall is in the NASCAR world, and not the fact that they're racing this weekend. I am intrigued to see how everything will play out over the next 14 days with all the races they have. But in order to determine, with no qualifying, in order to determine the starting grid, the positions 1 to 12, then 13 and 24, and so forth, are determined by a random draw from charter teams in those positions in team owner points. Okay, I understand that. So that goes all the way down the grid. Then it kind of changes for the second Darlington race, which I think is next Wednesday. It's the first half of the field, then the second half of the field. Then to make it even more confusing with all of these rules and stuff they're throwing in here, there is now the really annoying competition caution being utilized at Darlington, I believe, for the May 27th race, or maybe for the Coke 600. The article is a little confusing. It's on motorsport.com and they break it down very well, but it's just a lot of confusion for fans, especially maybe casual fans that are tuning in, and they just don't understand why is this guy starting here? No wave around, free pass for the first car, one flag down, the pit cycle repeats. There's just a lot to break down there, and I don't know if that's going to play well on TV, especially for casual fans who are just tuning in for something to watch. They might not understand what's going on.
I don't know. I mean, given the rules they've come out with, I think NASCAR is under the impression that everybody who watches their sport has an IQ of like 397.
Yeah, it is not a confusing article to read if I took more time to read it. But the Coca-Cola 600 will hold pole qualifying, but the race at the same track later that week will be based on the results from the 600, including the same 1 to 20 and 21 to 40 grid position inversion utilized at Darlington. Like, that sentence right there, I'm just kind of like not sure what's going on anymore. You lost me. You went left, and I know it's not the writer's fault. It's NASCAR's rules or whatever, but it's very confusing.
Yeah, it's just like the Xfinity one where if you didn't pit the first time, but you pitted the second time, then you get to be recycled into the third pot of something. Or yeah, like I'm saying, they think their fans have just this insanely high IQ that everybody could figure out and explain to me how nuclear power works or something. It's just like insane. I mean, I like to say that I'm pretty below average on the intelligence scale. I have no idea what they're saying. So if you're having a common fan kind of tune in for the first time, how are they supposed to understand that when, they're supposed to be learning things like what tire degradation is and what the flags mean and what the concept of pit cycles are and things like that. So to me, they just need to simplify it much more, just so we can kind of get back to the NASCAR roots, and so that just the average person out there can just understand it and not have to bring out a notepad and pen to try to make a flow chart of how this all works.
Yeah, very well said. So we will wrap it up there. Guys, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the Wayne Taylor, the Dale Coyne racing episodes that came out this week, and the James Hinchcliffe interview. James was a lot of fun to chat with, and very gracious for his time. And before we do sign off, I do want to throw some well wishes towards host Mike III, my grandpa, who's in the hospital right now. Looks okay, I think, but obviously pretty scary to be in the hospital right now. So sending well wishes to him. Matt, unless you have anything else, I will sign.
Just well wishes to host Mike III.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, guys, keep your lug nuts tight.